Next guest is a sports journalist. She's a legend, a writer, podcast host, producer, and she's adding author to her name. Jemele Hill holds nothing back in her new memoir. It's called Uphill, which hits the store shelves this week. And tonight you can see her in person at Politics and Prose in Northwest. This morning she is here live to talk about the book, the career, and more. Good morning to you. Good to see you, as always. Appreciate you coming in. So let's talk about your book. First of all, it gets deep. It gets deep. And you said, I love the quote you told me when I told you I was reading, and I got all the way to a very controversial section, but you said it gets lighter toward the end.
It gets lighter towards the end.
Yeah.
Very heavy at the beginning, and then you ease up to once you get toward the end.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the beginning. I didn't know this, but you came from a troubled home, a troubled childhood, and you were talking about how you used to see your mother and the drugs, and how that affected you mentally, and how you were able to overcome all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people who are the children of addicts can kind of relate to a lot of the things I'm talking about, where you're navigating around the abuse, their drug abuse, their drug addiction, and just having to deal with some very heavy issues as a child. You know, my mother was a sexual abuse survivor, and so unfortunately, because of that, she was suffering from a very acute case of PTSD. But then, you know, you guys were talking about the 80s. In the 80s, people, that term wasn't, you know, thrown around as widely as it is now. And even in our community, in the Black community, the idea of seeking therapy was just relatively unknown or unheard of. So it just went untreated for a long time. And she self-medicated. And, you know, unfortunately, I had to witness her at some of her lowest moments.
When you talk about your career, you were able to navigate all of that, navigate a troubled childhood, and go through your career, making some decisions about where you're going to go next, and eventually you ended up at ESPN. And in your book, you said, like every sports person's dream is to end up at ESPN, and you were one of those people. It was fun for a while.
It's fun while it lasted.
But there was drama there.
Yeah.
Speak to, I don't want to give the whole book away, but talk a little bit about the drama that went along, especially when you criticized then President Donald Trump, like all hell broke loose.
Yeah, it did. I mean, I was at ESPN for 12 years. It was the best job that I've ever had. And I spent the last 5 years doing daily television. And of course, when I'm on SportsCenter, one of the most high profile positions you could be on, SportsCenter is ESPN's baby. And that was when I tweeted about the president. I called him a white supremacist. And never did I expect after that tweet that it would make its way to the White House, because next thing I know, former press secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders is on national TV telling people I should be fired. And then the president chimed in, and so it just kind of blew my life up. And I talk about a lot in the book about what the fallout from that.
Because at one point you said you thought you needed security because you didn't feel safe.
Oh,
because
not thought, did.
Right.
Okay, not thought, definitely did, because of the constant death threats and, you know, just feeling uneasy in public because of the type of people that the former president tends to attract. Like there are very rabid people that follow him. And when you criticize him, suddenly all of that rabidness is turned onto you.
And it led to your demise, somewhat to your demise at ESPN, but you moved past that and you moved on to other things as well.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say what happened was that once there was sort of a breach in trust between me and ESPN, because I was very disappointed that when he did publicly attack me, the former president, that they didn't stand up for me. And coming from a kind of an old school journalistic background, when City Hall comes after your journalist, you stand with your journalist. Like that's the way news organizations should operate. And when they didn't do that, that just kind of let me know that, you know, we had a good run, but maybe my time is up. And so I willingly chose to leave there because there were other things that I wanted to pursue. I'd done everything at ESPN by that point. You know, I anchored SportsCenter. I had my own daily sports discussion show, podcasting, writing, sideline reporting. There was nothing left for me to do.
Right. You moved on and you're doing a lot of different things right now. Speak to some of those, lot of different things you've done, because your plate is full, and it's been full ever since then.
Yeah, it's like I often joke that I traded in one job for 52 jobs. And so really excited about some of the things I have coming up next week on Spotify, my podcast network. The first two podcasts that we have, that they drop, The Black Girl Bravado and another podcast called Sanctified. And this is a passion project for me. I created this podcast network for Black women that centers Black women, that hopefully will show the fullness of who we are, how we laugh, how we love, how we worship, and also is Black woman led. And so I'm really excited that that's launching next week. And then I'm also executive producing Colin Kaepernick's 30 for 30 documentary,
with Spike Lee,
which is directed by Spike Lee. So we're already in production, and I think people will really, well, one, I think once this is done, a lot of people, they already do now owe Colin Kaepernick an apology, but when you put his story together and people can see visually and hear from him what he experienced, what he's been through, a lot more people will feel embarrassed and ashamed for how they vilified this man.
Right. Okay. Jemele Hill, she's got it going on. She has a lot going on, including this book right here. You can pick it up everywhere, right?
Yes, everywhere books are sold. And yes, there is an audio recording, because y'all always ask me.
Yeah, a lot of people don't want to read, they just want to listen.
Exactly.
So here we get, and there's some information about your upcoming book tour schedule. So we appreciate you joining us this morning. So thank you, Jemele Hill. All right. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Oh, we also got to get you to talk about Jackson State and Coach Prime. There's my Jackson State.
There it is.
There's my Jackson State mention for the week on a Friday.